Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Lights, camera, action. In 2024, 569 films were released in the US and Canada. In India, over 1,000 films were released in 2023. It's easy to say that people love movies, unless you're Amish. And they'd probably love them too if they were allowed to watch them. However, not all films can be made by big fancy studios. Some of them have to be funded independently, which is where Weathervane Productions stepped in. Weathervane Productions was a godsend to the indie film industry. Their promise of matching funding for films was a glimmer of hope to filmmakers who were trying to pave their way in Hollywood. That is, until the lights went dim. Find out what happened on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
569 films, and one of them had to be fucking Amelia Perez.
Did you watch it?
Here we are. No, I'm set to watch it with a friend of mine, but I've seen clips, and it's just, there's no way that watching it's going to change my mind. Like you can definitely jump to some conclusions sometimes, but like seeing a couple of the songs from it, I'm like, this is terrible.
I don't have an opinion on it.
It won 2 Oscars.
I know.
And also just everything and then that, it was so sad, that lady trying to start the sing-along at the Oscars.
Oh, I didn't watch
of the
it.
song, and I'm like, no one's watched this, dude. No one's gonna sing. No one is gonna sing this song with you. She tried. She tried to get it started.
And we're going to try to get you interested in this episode. Welcome back to another episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Amelia. Oh, so sad. My name is Kashan.
And I'm Nina. And I did not watch Amelia Perez, and I don't even know what it's about.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the lore.
Yeah, don't get into the lore.
Go ahead and go online for that.
Yeah, and we're not a Amelia Perez podcast.
Thank God. Oh, my gosh.
We're not Oscar commentary.
Also, thank God.
I think that would actually be very boring. Most Oscar films are not super, what's the word I want to use? Enrapturing.
Yeah, entertaining. Because they're not.
Definitely, yeah. Wonder if you've watched some of the movies we're going to talk about today. Where it all starts in the beginning, the backstory. Like every good movie has one. Jason Van Eman, he grew up in Oklahoma, and he was born to a middle-class family who did well for themselves. Van Eman was a very good student and athlete, and it seemed like he was going to do great in life. And he was really smart. He was actually accepted into the Air Force Academy, but after a year in school, he realized that the sky actually was the limit for him, and he spread his wings into a new direction. He wanted to be an actor.
Dang, the Air Force. You actually have to get any kind of score on the ASVABs to get in there.
I don't even know what the ASVATs are.
ASVAB.
See?
I don't know. It's the test to get in the military, and if you do poorly, they just put you in like the Army infantry.
Van Eman, he wanted to be an actor, and he had the charm, he had the looks, and there was no reason why he couldn't be the next George Clooney. He did have some success as an actor in Hollywood. He did land a role in a film called Regarding Billy. It was a coming out story between an Air Force pilot and his best friend. They did ask and they did tell in that movie.
Oh my God. What a great poster tagline.
It wasn't. I just came up with that right now. I'm so proud of myself.
He asked, he told.
He asked, he told. Regarding Billy, a coming out story. Or a coming in and out story.
Oh, what's the Tom Cruise movie?
Vanilla Sky.
No.
Mission Impossible.
The one about flying, Nina.
Oh, Top Gun.
Yeah. Coming to a theater near you. Top Gun 2. But gay.
But gay. I would love a gay version of Top Gun.
I think it's just Top Gun.
I'm trying to think of a top and bottom.
They have that shirtless volleyball scene. I think it's just Top Gun.
I watched that movie one time. I really don't remember.
I've never seen it, but I know about it.
But show business is hard, and Van Eman decided to leave Hollywood like so many other wannabe actors before him. He went back to Oklahoma to get married and start a family. However, he never let that Hollywood dream die. He decided he wanted to be on the production side of things and started his very own production company, Weathervane Productions.
In the beautiful film mecca of Oklahoma. All right.
Listen, everywhere needs. There's an industry for everywhere.
Yeah, well, what was he looking to film? Wrangler commercials?
Yes.
That's what he's going to get in Oklahoma.
Commercials. In 2011, Van Eman met an investor in Miami named Ben McConley. A mutual friend who worked with both Van Eman and McConley introduced them to each other. McConley is the owner of Forest Capital Partners and claims to have an impressive portfolio of wealth that runs through his family's office. McConley also had links to Wells Fargo and seemed to have it all together. So, and it was very clear that McConley was doing well for himself and had money. He flew on private jets, had fancy sports cars, wore nice suits, flashy watches. He had a hot IG model girlfriend. I mean, just like everything that Van Eman wanted. All right.
You mean Van Eman wanted more than the wife and kids? He already did. You said he wanted to start a family. Does he already have a wife and kids, or is he just
not totally clear?
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it was more the material goods that he was after.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or maybe his wife wasn't that hot, you know? I don't know.
I'm looking for an upgrade, man.
Hey, can I trade this old Model in and
swap this out for the new one?
The old ball and chain over here. The two decide to partner up alongside McConley's banking assistant, Benjamin Raphael. So Van Eman, using his Hollywood connections, he claimed to be able to finance film projects up to 50% with his business partner. And McConley would be the one to give them the money. So he's like, you have a film you're trying to produce. You have a portion of the money. We will match it up to 50%. And then it was actually allegedly, it was McConley's money that was going to be the one matching this because of all of his assets and investments. He was going to be able to put up this money.
Yeah. Okay. He's the money guy.
He's the money guy.
Sense. He's a producer.
Yes. The production company did produce some straight to streaming faith-based projects initially, which are just shitty Christian films. I grew up on these as a child. And although these weren't super successful, they were producing credits that Van Eman was earning, building him his resume. As they continued making films, their IMDb pages began to speak for themselves. Eventually, they began to produce higher quality films that starred A-list celebrities, including some of the films being Jane Got a Gun, starring Natalie Portman, The Sound, starring Rose McGowan and Christopher Lloyd, and The Tale, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival but was bought by HBO. So, needless to say, their lineup of films was becoming increasingly more impressive. Soon, producers from all over the world began contacting Weathervane Productions to help them finance their films. Across the pond, a passion project for Saul Papadopoulos and Terrence Davis, who is a very esteemed filmmaker, makes its way to Weathervane Productions. The film is A Quiet Passion, a story based on the life of the poet Emily Dickinson. It was going to star Cynthia Nixon, who was the actress who played Miranda in Sex and the City, as Emily Dickinson.
Is Emily Dickinson the one that stuck her head in the oven?
I don't know about that. That was a poet?
Hey, that was Sylvia Plath.
That sounds more like Sylvia Plath.
Was she the one that was real sad?
Yeah, I think so. Emily Dickinson was also a sad girl, but she was like in love with her pastor who was married.
Classic.
We read some of her poetry in high school. I don't know a whole lot about her. I do kind of want to watch this movie though after learning about this story.
Oh, they actually made it.
Yes.
Okay, I just figured it never came out. Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah. Papadopoulos was in charge of financing the film, and while looking for potential investors, he stumbled upon Weathervane Productions, and he knew that they could help him. However, Papadopoulos immediately realizes that Van Eman's finance structure is odd. Weathervane Productions would match the investment, like I said earlier. The way Van Eman told him that it worked, the investment would be 50-50. They match your contribution, and then there's the money for your film.
But you have to give them the half first, and then they give you back the full amount?
So basically what was going to happen was you would give them, So you would give them.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. So let's say my budget for my film is $20,000, and I obviously don't have $20,000. So I would give them 10, and then they would put it into a production account and match the other $10,000. So now my account has $20,000. So you did have to give them the money. And this is not normally how this works. And Papadopoulos knew that because he had been in the film industry for a long time and he knew how things typically went. They were able to do this matching because, like I said earlier, McConley had a lot of assets and he was able to invest all this money because of his other businesses and his other assets. By doing this, by the budget matching or the funding matching, Weathervane would then be entitled to 50% of the film's profits. And so they would only make money if the film made money. Obviously, the filmmakers were weary of this deal because, like I said, no one else is really doing this. But Weathervane's track record was really solid and films had been made with them and they had a good reputation. This was happening. A Quiet Passion was, I think it came out in 2016, and like Jane Got a Gun, that came out in 2015, the one with Natalie Portman. So like they're already doing bigger budget films at this point. So that's kind of why Papadopoulos and Davis kind of went ahead and went with them.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, they have this track record of such hits such as, Coming Inside Jesus, from their old streaming days, or
Worthy is the Lamb.
The passionate love of God fills you, just like great stuff. Of course they can be trusted.
Daddy God.
Would a Christian ever take your money?
Well, they never claimed to be Christian.
To take it?
No, never. But if you're not familiar with the film industry, there are pretty much two different types of films. You've got studio films and then independent films. Studio films.
There's actually at least one more.
All right, fine.
Adult.
Which you can argue could also be a studio or an independent film.
I'm about to say there's a lot of people moving to independent nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A bunch of people from college.
That I went to gone into
got theater degrees.
It's actually crazy how many filmmakers I've met in my life.
I have a lot of friends that are independent filmmakers.
Yes, me too.
And accountants somehow.
Homemade. Back to studio films and independent films. Studio films are produced by a studio. So, these are companies like MGM, Disney, Sony, etc. DreamWorks, all right, just to name a few. And the film is financed by the studio, meaning that they pay for everything. They're the ones who, through the company, the director is hired. They hire people to hire the director, the actors, the crew, etc. Everything is done through them. The only, I don't want to say problem, but one thing that sometimes people have an issue with when it comes to studio films is that they don't have as many creative liberties. The rules are a little bit stricter. The studio is giving the yay or nay to certain things in the film, even if the director wants to, even if the director wants the film to be another way, the studio can say, no, we don't want that scene. No, we don't want this person acting in it, and so on. An independent film is filmed outside of the studio, and it is financed by the individuals who are making the film. And this is done in a variety of ways. One way that this is done is by crowdfunding. Independent filmmakers will make a GoFundMe or something similar to finance the film. I know with the very low budget independent films that I have been a part of, that this is a really big way that people do finance films, is by, putting up a GoFundMe and you just pray that all your parents' middle-class friends will donate $100 to your film so that you can shoot. I didn't put it in here, but I've been a part of several fundraisers for films, either those being talent shows or a variety show or something along those lines to try to gain money for the film, silent auctions, etc. Another way that this is done is by debt financing. So that's by using like bank loans or gap funding, which is a one-time loan to cover the gap in the financing. Equity financing, which is investors or back-end compensation. So investors will receive additional compensation if they're entitled to it. And you can also use grants. There are obviously a ton of ways that someone could finance a film, but these are the most popular ones. Papadopoulos had been doing this for a long time, so he knew right away when Weathervane was like, oh, well, when you give us half and then we match that half, he's like, so, like, you've got a good track record, but something's off. A Quiet Passion begins production, and everything seems to be going well. However, 90 days into production, Papadopoulos expects to have $4 million in the production account. When he goes to check the account, the balance sits at zero.
That's a lot less.
That is a lot less. When questioning Van Eman about the lack of finances in the account, he tells him that there are issues with the banking and that there are compliance issues. But everything's fine. Like, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. However, at day 100, there is still no money in the bank, and there are 65 workers who have begun building sets who desperately need to be paid.
I'm about to say, how are they paying for anything if they don't have any money?
Exactly, they're not. And the producers are forced to take out loans to pay their employees, which is really frustrating because in all reality, they could have just taken out a loan in the first place.
Yeah.
To cover all of this. After pressure from Papadopoulos, Van Eman sends them 2 transfers of $10,000, but this is nowhere near the amount of money that they should have. It is taking so long to get the funds that there's a point where Papadopoulos isn't sure. He does not know if he can pay Cynthia Nixon, the star of his movie. And Nixon is supposed to fly to England to shoot the film, and agents will not let their actors on a plane before they are paid. So he's really scrambling at this point. They put more heat on Van Eman, and he really does like do this thing where he is just kind of playing them, where he's just giving them a couple $1,000, like little bits of $10,000 at a time to kind of what's the word I want to use?
String them along.
Yes, to just kind of string them along so that they can't necessarily say that this is a scam or fraud, but also at the same time, they don't have access to the funds that they're supposed to have access to. And Papadopoulos says that this was one of the worst filming experiences he ever had in his life. Not because of what was happening on set, but because he had to harass and bother Van Eman every single day of filming to get his money, which is so that has got to be just like the most frustrating thing as a producer and like someone who's helping with the directing process. Your worry should just be on the creative process at that point. Like, I've already technically done the funding. This should be a non-issue, and you're making it this big issue. And I'm sure he absolutely felt like it was damaging the product of the film. However, he said that he made sure that his cast and crew did not know what was going on at all. I don't know. I do think that sometimes people in charge will be like, well, I held it together and no one had any idea. And it's like, we kind of had an idea.
Also, you should probably tell people.
No, you 100% should tell people. But
like,
I think he was worried.
This is what's going on.
I think he was worried that people were going to think that like he couldn't do his job or something. Like, I think it was a pride issue, honestly, to not let the people who were working on the project know what was happening.
I guess, but it's obviously not his fault. Like, be like, I'm constantly harassing this guy to pay us the money that he said he would pay us, which is ridiculous.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous. In 2016, the film debuts and is a success. Papadopoulos thinks that the only reason that he was actually able to get his money at all was because it was a successful project. The success of the film would mean that Weathervane Productions would be able to use A Quiet Passion as a credit for the production company. However, not all of the films were as lucky as A Quiet Passion was. In 2015, venture capitalist Paul Martino sets out to make the indie film Inside Game. The film is about an infamous NBA betting scandal that his cousin was involved with. What?
You're like, my cousin was in a betting scandal. Wouldn't that make a great movie? No, probably not. That sounds like a really boring fucking story that you tell people and you think is really interesting, but no one cares.
Well, people cared, though, because after his cousin got out of jail, he started getting offers to sell his story. So I guess people cared.
They'll buy fucking anything.
Well, that's true. People
they bought the script
anything.
once again for Amelia Perez, okay? They'll buy anything. It doesn't have to be interesting.
That's true. Touche. Too fucking shay.
You just have to know someone, and it seemed like he knew someone.
He did know someone. However, his cousin, the offers that people were making his cousin for his story were really, really bad. And his cousin was just trying to rebuild his life after prison. So he ended up buying the rights to his cousin's story as a way to help him get back on his feet. And after doing so, he set his sights on making the film. Martino, he had a couple... and like he got his friends to help invest in the film, and he and his business partner Michael Pierce came up with the budget, and they realized they needed about $4 million to make the film. They didn't want to sink all of their money into the project, so they started looking for outside investors, which I think is very fair.
Yeah, you should never do that.
No.
I think that's like rule number one is like don't put your own money in the project. That's a really good way to lose money.
No, that's a very good way to lose money. I actually have a friend who did this with a film. I don't know if it was a short or a feature.
Francis Ford Coppola? Yeah.
Yes, my very good friend, Francis Coppola.
And you're like, oh, don't.
My bestie.
Francis, don't sell part of the winery. And then he does. He's like, this movie is going to be great. All right. It's about the Roman Empire. You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, but I did have a friend who put a lot of money into a project that they were filming, and then it kind of all went awry, and they lost $10,000.
Oh, there you go.
When they did not have extra $10,000. So, blah, blah, blah. Pierce ends up finding Weathervane Productions. And now Pierce really does do his homework. He gets references from them, and he does his research on them. And just like Papadopoulos thought, they really did seem to be legitimate. He also liked the fact that they were associated with Wells Fargo, because remember that McConaughey had a connection to Wells Fargo, and Benjamin Raphael worked with Wells Fargo. And Pierce liked this because of Wells Fargo's strong reputation. Too bad this was 2015 and he wasn't able to see into a crystal ball into the future and find out about their scandal that would happen the next year. If you don't know what we're talking about, you can go listen to our Wells Fargo episode. But Martino and Pierce agree to work with Weathervane, and they sign the paperwork, and the deal's on the way. Martino, now, although he didn't want to sink all of his own money into the production, he did put up $1.25 million of his own money to fund the film. And he believes that amount is going to be matched by Weathervane Productions, because they also, even though that's clearly not the full $4 million, he also had other investors that were going to make up that difference. Now, Van Eman assures Martino that he has nothing to worry about with their company, and even tells him, unless they have someone in the bank, there's no way you could lose your money. They wire the money to McConaughey's account, and all seems to be good. Until it's not. Once production starts, a line producer realizes that there is no money in the production account, very much like our last story, leaving cast, crew, and the $1.25 million hanging. Martino knows that something is up. Van Eeman's given him the runaround. Unfortunately, he is not as successful as Papadopoulos in getting his money. And so he hires a private investigator to actually look into Ben McConley, not Jason Van Eeman. Of course, the PI finds out that he is sketchy as hell. The PI discovers that McConley actually has a record. He has been arrested in his past, and despite his past run-ins with the law, he lives a really lavish lifestyle. He, like I said earlier, when Van Eeman got involved with him, he looked like he was rich. It seemed like he was rich. Private jets, nice clothes, nice watches, sports cars. He's taken these great vacations, despite the fact that he lives in literally a vacation hub, Miami. He's got the hot Instagram girlfriend that is miles out of his league physically. And he funds weekly photo shoots for her so that she can pretend to be a model, a real model. This part really reminds me of Erica Jane, where like her husband was just like throwing all this money for her fake career, and we're like, it's all documented on social media, and we literally can see all of the money that they're spending fraudulently, and it's all documented. It just reminded me of that. And McConley loved to party. He didn't bat an eye at spending $20K in one night at the club for bottle service, which is just so ridiculous. So we said earlier that the filmmakers were depositing all their money into McConley's account. However, the way that Jason Van Eeman works into this scheme, which is what I didn't talk about earlier, was that once that money hit McConley's account, he would kind of just decide how much money he was going to send Jason Van Eeman. Jason Van Eeman was kind of like the recruiter. Well, not kind of. He was the recruiter. He was the one getting people to invest their money into the or the ones that he said he was going to invest the money into the film. And he was like the roper in our Lou Blonger episode. Yes, he was definitely the roper. And then or the spieler. Yes. Yeah. And then McConley would get the money into his account. He would transfer it into the production account. He would transfer it immediately into his own private accounts. He would then send whatever amount he deemed fit to Jason Van Eeman, and then Jason Van Eeman would decide, okay, am I going to give these people any money, or am I not going to give these people any money? He was basically the puppet master. He was like, okay, which films am I going to fund? Which ones am I not? And you know what? The two of them, they keep the three of them, because Benjamin Raphael is also looped into this as McConley's assistant. They keep this scheme going for 8 years. And this wasn't the only film this happened to, but production for Inside Game comes to a screeching halt. Now, Paul Martino, he is from Philadelphia, and he definitely has that Philly don't fuck with me attitude, and he's not going down without a fight. So his career, Martino's career, was mostly spent in the tech industry. So he decided to make a website alert for when people looked up Weathervane Productions to warn them about Van Eeman's schemes. And in this warning, he's like, hey, if you've got questions, if you've got concerns, contact me, contact Paul Martino. And Martino's line starts ringing off the hook. Over 30 people contacted him about Weathervane Productions. Oh, damn. Yeah. Because now there was a variety of reasons why people were contacting him. Either they were contacting him because they also were in the middle of getting scammed and were like, hey, something doesn't feel right. What's your experience? Or it was people who were like, hey, this company has a really great track record, but now this is popping up. Like, what do you know that I don't know? So there was a variety of reasons why people were contacting him, but nevertheless, 30 people contacted him. So basically, what was happening is they were taking the money from all of these projects, but then they were just redirecting money to pay the ones they thought would actually be successful, and just like completely stiffing some movies that they already took their money, going like, let's not give it to them. Yes. That's so crazy. Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. So it's a Ponzi scheme. Kind of. I feel like it was a little more just like blatant stealing than a regular Ponzi scheme. Well, they use money from other investors to pay off. Yeah, I guess that's true. But But a lot of these people then, too, they didn't get their full amount.
Crazy that it took so long for someone to get pissed off enough to come after them. 8 years?
Yeah, well, but
you feel like if one person gets stiffed for this much money, they're like, oh, fuck you.
Well, that's part of it that I'll get to, because there was a reason why. There's a little bit of a reason why they weren't gone after right away. The FBI does end up catching wind of this scheme, and they contact Martino, and Martino gives them all the evidence that he had about Weathervane Productions. He was like, here are the 30 people that contacted me. Here's my own shit. Here's what the private investigator told me. So he did a lot of the grunt work for the FBI. And the FBI realizes how much money was actually lost. The largest loss was about $28 million, but many filmmakers had just been scraping their pennies to finance their dreams. So a lot of these weren't super big budget films. I know that the two that I talked about were in the $4 million range, which is really high, but like a lot of these were just small independent films. So they didn't have the money or the means or probably even the knowledge on how to go after them. They were just kind of like, shit, my money got stolen. And are just mad about it.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Couldn't be me. Like, I definitely be
no,
like,
I would have.
I'm finding a way to sue these people as quickly as possible.
Yeah. But a lot of people didn't. The FBI found out that in 7 years, over $68 million was moved out of McConley's personal Wells Fargo account. $20 million of that money was sent directly to Jason Van Eman. It was also found out that McConley's private banker, Benjamin Raphael, his little assistant, was actually just he had made people believe that Benjamin Raphael was just like this super smart banker, an expert in what he did, leading in his field. But he was in reality just a mid-level banker who he hired to help him with the fraud. And Raphael, he did work for Wells Fargo, but he was fired by them. He just used their letterhead to make the transactions between the fraudsters and the investigators look legitimate. So not only were film projects destroyed by McConley and Van Eman, but some people had their reputations and careers ruined by their schemes. Van Eman, McConley, and Raphael were all charged with money laundering. McConley pleaded guilty on September 14th, 2021, and was sentenced to 13 years in prison. Raphael was sentenced to 42 months. But just like Paul Martino, Jason Van Eman wasn't going down without a fight. Van Eman went into a 6-week-long trial. 15 victims came and spoke against him. In April 2022, Benjamin Raphael, takes the stand against Van Eman, and he tells the court that Van Eman knew about the false bank documents and that he actually helped create them. Van Eman was in control of the entire fraud. Now, Van Eman's lawyer claims that Van Eman didn't know that Raphael was a fraud, but I mean, I don't believe it. You know what you were doing. You know you weren't giving people the money that they were supposed to be getting. Like,
yeah, because you're getting contacted constantly saying, I don't have the money.
I don't have my money. And you're actively not giving it to them. Literally actively not giving it to them.
So you can't do all that and then be like, I didn't know.
So Jason Van Eman was found guilty on all accounts, and on July 21st, 2022, Jason Van Eman was sentenced to 21 years in prison and has to pay $9 million in restitution.
Wow, these guys really got the book thrown at them.
They were making an example out of these guys for sure. For sure.
Maybe the judge is just on the payroll of the Hollywood elite.
That is probably what is happening, actually. No, I think that this man is going to serve anywhere near 21 years. Probably not.
No.
I'll be shocked if he even serves 10, but that's what he got sentenced to.
That is crazy, though, yeah.
The show must go on unless you wrap production early. And that's exactly what happened to Weathervane Productions. Weathervane Productions were cut before they finished their taking of other people's money. Ben McConley, Benjamin Raphael, and Jason Van Eman preyed on people with a dream. They stole their money right out of their hands and had a great time using it for their own gain. However, these ending credits turned into blooper reels. The joke being their asses sitting in prison. You didn't like my puns.
No.
That's okay.
No,
I didn't do it for you.
No. I gotta get a key grip back on reality right now. All right. In the end, though, I at least know that I'm the best boy.
What does that even mean?
Those are both titles for production people on movies. There's the key grip, and then there's also the best boy.
Yeah. Key gripping best boy. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. You are the best boy. Ew, gross. That was disgusting coming out of my mouth. I'm gonna throw up. Anyway, if you liked what you listened to, if you liked what you heard, that was so gross. I want to eat soap now. Ugh. I need to wash my mouth out with soap. But if you liked what you listened to and you want more, you can check us out on social media. We are on Facebook.com/WhiteCollarsRedHands. We are on Twitter at WhiteCollarsPod. We're on Instagram at WhiteCollars_RedHands. We're on TikTok at WhiteCollarsRedHands. And we are on YouTube at, you guessed it, WhiteCollarsRedHands. If you want another way to support us, please do so by leaving a review. We love a 5-star review, but we will take an honest review as well. Please make it 5 stars. Thanks. Another great way to spread the word about us is just let a friend know about us. Tell a friend. People tend to take their friends' recommendations. This is stupid. Just tell a friend about us. And then an unfree way to support us is by going to our website and clicking on the merch tab. They'll take you over to TeePublic and you can buy some merch from us.
And our website is?
WhiteCollarsRedHands.com. If you hear of a white collar crime story and you're like, oh my God, Nina and Kashan should totally cover that, send it our way. You can do so by DMing us on any of our socials or sending it via email to whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com.
Or we use the contact us portion
tab
on our website.
That too.
So
that'll work as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
I believe so.
Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next time on another episode of White Collars,
Red Hands.